Discovery loves epic storylines that are galactically influential, that cause like huge problems across the universe, right? Like they've had the Red Angel, they have Control, which is going to destroy all sentient life. They have the Burn, which has affected huge parts of the galaxy. But what they're really interested in is personal trauma. So they conflate personal trauma, one person's personal trauma, with a universe-shattering output from it. And what you end up with is you have these huge plot lines that deal with the universe at large. And when you get to the solution, you go, this is very small and strange. What a strange connection that such a person crying has caused all of this trauma. And it's not, even if it is interesting on a small level, personal, like Su'Kal, I'm interested in what Su'Kal has gone through. When I try to extrapolate it out to the larger universe, I go, this is kind of silly. You know, like this is just a silly connection that they've made here. Burnham's mother being the Red Angel. It's this personal thing they think should matter, but it's having such ramifications down the line.
Well, I think the reason that they're doing that is because when you get into cosmic level events, it's very difficult to care about them. Like the stakes they level off very quickly when you start escalating them into galactic and cosmic level events and stuff like that. Like there's once you start talking about destructions of planets and galaxies and shit, it's like, oh, okay, sure, this is going to be special effects and stuff, but why do I give a shit? So what they're trying to do, which makes sense, is they're trying to link the large scale galactic events, which are pretty unrelatable, to something that is very personal and relatable. However, I think they're being too literal about it, is what the problem is, because I don't have a problem with doing that. I think Doctor Who does it really well. I think the reason the Marvel movies work when they keep expanding the world out is because they are rooted in character work and rooted in character change and struggle and stuff like that. But I think this show gets too literal about the connection between a character's problem and the larger cosmic problem, because it's too
direct, I think, is the issue.
Direct, and it makes things feel really small,
right?
In a way that it shouldn't. It should be the galactic level event should amplify the personal event, but what's happening in this show is the personal event is making the galactic level event feel really small.
Yes, I would also say that this is it's a scale problem, but it's also a problem that minimizes what the show should have been interested in here. So if you do a galactic level event where the burn happens, stepping it down one notch, to me, the intermediary step that's been missing, that we've always said has been missing, has been how has this affected the universe at large? Like what has this caused? From that point, you have our characters underneath that level of story, which are how do Burnham, Saru, and the crew interact with the new Federation that exists in this new world that's happened here. They don't do that. It's another Discovery thing. They skip that middle step. They're not interested in what the world looks like at this point. They have a big event, and we're going to tie it into a character event right at the bottom. And it's too small. It's too silly, and it's also just not. It's not revealing of the characters in the story. Like learning Su'Kal did this is fine. There's not I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's kind of silly that it's one little Kelpian baby screaming caused this whole thing to happen. But assuming
there's still a chance they could, undercut it or subvert it somehow. But
yeah, assuming. I find that unlikely, but I'll hedge it and say assuming. It completely skips anything about Burnham and crew getting to that point. It skips anything about Vance and the Federation. It skips anything about Osira and what that means. And you've just solved the mystery without really going into what made it an interesting mystery. It was never an interesting mystery, but you've done away with all the trappings that would actually expose like how this has impacted stuff outside of its Discovery's insistence on the trauma of characters. And what I think is, I'm sort of honing in on what my main criticism of Discovery is that Discovery, this title Star Trek Discovery is not about physical discovery. It's not about exploration. It's about, they want the show to be personal discovery. They want it to be like a character growth, sort of trauma overcoming stuff. Sure. And I'm totally fine with that. But they can't, if they want to do that kind of storytelling, you can't have these huge stakes attached to it. You can't do these huge plots on top. Star Trek Discovery should be the adventures of a crew on a remote starbase or something, you know? And it's like, you need a smaller scale thing where you can spend time with the characters, and all of these changes that have taken place with the crew, where Tilly becomes the XO and then Tilly becomes the captain, actually exist and feel real in a world. The problem with Discovery, and I'll get back to you, I'm talking a lot, is that Discovery is trying to couple the J.J. Abrams understanding of Star Trek, which I mentioned before is an embarrassment about Star Trek. It's not an embarrassment about Star Trek's details or Star Trek, the franchise in general. It's an embarrassment about the way that Star Trek stories used to be told. They go, it's too boring. We can't be boring like that. People don't want to watch boring shit on TV. What we're going to do is add a whole lot of excitement to this. Whole lot of excitement, but we're also going to try to tell a dramatic personal story on top of it. And they don't line up. It just doesn't line up. You can't combine those two, at least in this show, not in a very effective way, where the huge implications of this galactic mystery and the science behind it and how it's impacted things are also being paired with a story of telling people how they're growing up and developing as people. I think it's missing on both fronts in that attack.
I think they are not pulling it off on this show, but I don't think that you can't do it, because, I mean, if you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, either one of those movies, those are very small personal movies about Peter Quill losing his mother and his family and finding his father and all this kind of stuff, which are couched in these galactic level event. He literally fights a living planet in the second movie.
Yeah.
But the story itself is about him coming to terms with his father and his past and all that kind of stuff.
The galactic thing, I would say, is a MacGuffin in that case, though. It's the driver of action. Right. I think Discovery's priority is that they misplace the priority. They want to show us the results of the personal, but all they're interested in telling us about is the big mystery.